Okay, welcome everyone. Maybe just one more minute. I think there are still participants coming in. Really thanks to all of you who have logged in on time. Okay. Okay, we have some technical issue in getting our intro slide up, but I will just go ahead so that I will not take up the speaker's time. I just want to extend a warm welcome to everyone. It's a Monday morning and it's Sunday evening for some of you. We thank you for taking the time to join us in our APSCE webinar. And this webinar is titled Design for Emergence, Conceptual and Technology Support for Student-Driven Knowledge Building. I think it's a very exciting title that gets us really thinking. I'm Chu Lee. I am a research scientist from the Center of Research for Pedagogy and Practice in National Institute of Education. In case you're wondering where is Kate, Kate is supposed to be our moderator, but she's not able to join us because of some personal issue, and she sent her regards and she sent her apology. So since I am the chair of the special interest group, for CSCL and Learning Sciences in the APSCE group. So I initiated this webinar, so naturally I took over from Kate and I'll be the moderator for this morning. So with us, we have two very young and bright scholars. We have Dan from a postdoctoral fellow in Advanced Innovation Center for Future Education in Beijing Normal University. And she researched on knowledge building, student agentic co-regulation in a sustained knowledge building discourse. And today she's going to talk about reflective structuration. I'm going to leave her to talk to you about this exciting topic. And our second speaker, we have Wangji Catherine. She's a research scientist with me at the National Institute of Education. And she has her work on cross-community collaboration in learning analytics and in knowledge building community. So this is an exciting time for us to hear new research, and I'll pass the time over to Dan to start off this morning. Dan?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Okay. Thanks, Julie, for the brief introduction. And then let me share my screen. All right, let's get started. I'll begin with a metaphor used by Anne Pennington-Julian and John Sidney Brown in their new book.
Okay, Dan, your screen, I'm not seeing your screen yet. So maybe just one more. I see that you have started screen sharing, but it's just not coming out yet.
Oh, so what happened? Let me see.
Yeah. I think it may just take a while. You can share it again.
Share it again. Okay.
While Dan is sharing, there is a Q&A tab at the bottom. Keep your question coming, or you can also type the question in the chat.
Can you see it now?
For me, you have started screen sharing, but maybe wait a while. The rest are you seeing? Is it my internet? Banji is not seeing also, right?
Yeah, it's same for me.
So maybe just wait for a while.
Okay, let me see.
If not, I have your slide. I can share it here also.
Oh, let me see. I made some changes to the slide. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I will reopen it again. Stop the sharing and start sharing.
It's probably more of a lapse because we do see that you're sharing screen.
Share screen. Let's see. Can you see it now?
It's still the line you have started sharing screen.
Okay, so what I should do right now? I'm sending you an email to help me present, and I'll just. Sorry about that.
No problem. We tried this before, it works, and then it always works.
Yeah,
working at the right time.
we just like before.
You
like,
want to send me the slides, or should we? Would it be a problem if Catherine starts first, or and then while you sort out?
Okay.
Would that be very disruptive, or?
Nope. Yeah, I think that works well.
It works? Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe we pass the time to Guangqi. They each have about 20 or so minutes to share. And then we have a bit of time for clarifying question before we come back together for a big discussion.
Yeah.
So pass the time to Catherine.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Guangqi, we are seeing your other screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this correct now?
Yes. Great. Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. So I will go first. Hello, everyone. My name is Guangji Yuan. I also go by Catherine. I'm a research scientist at the National Institute of Education at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to present my research findings, specifically regarding cross-classroom collaboration in knowledge-building communities. So my research focuses on extending the collective inquiry at a larger social scale and for a longer time. So to start, 2000 years ago, Aristotle said, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So practically that means the more we know, the more we need to know, especially in regard to collective inquiry, where ideas are continuously developed, refined, and built upon, giving rise to deeper challenges and higher goals, driving sustained cycles of creative inquiry using collective discourses. So the main characteristics of the collective discourses and interaction for knowledge building are that first, participants navigate and work with diverse ideas for creative problem solving and knowledge building. Second, participants can learn how to pursue collective dialogue and advance the state of their collective knowledge. So when students continuously work in their own community, as inquiries get deeper in each community, it is important to connect communities as a connected intellectual field. So we need to create a connected intellectual field that has an easy accessible knowledge base for accumulated knowledge and cultivate an environment for students to engage in sustained discourse in a way that promotes mutual learning and a dynamic idea contact and cross-fertilization.
Catherine, I'm just being told that your slides is blocked for some reason. Maybe you can go back to it's actually blocked 1/3 of it. I don't know how important it is, but yeah, okay, it works now.
It works now?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Yeah,
cool.
Thanks.
Thanks. The current studies mainly focus on the interaction at a single layer and with direct sharing of local discourse space. which may cause certain situations like newcomers entering a community without enough context to understand what was going on. So although much progress has been made in understanding and supporting collective discourse, existing research has focused on student collaboration in small groups and individual classrooms. So further advancement of the field requires innovative designs to expand students' collaboration to higher social levels and longer time scales, and make knowledge practice and progress visible. So to address those challenges, in this study, we used an online learning platform, Ideas for a Mapper. Which Ideas for a Mapper was developed by my professor, Jianwei Zhang, and Professor Meihua Chen. Ideas for a Mapper has the benefits of visualizing unfolding strands of inquiry for long-term knowledge-building discourse, and it has a function for creating boundary-crossing knowledge objects for cross-community sharing of the learning progress. For knowledge objects in this study, we use the concept of boundary object. So a boundary object has a common structure to make it recognizable across different social worlds. It is plastic enough to adapt to local needs. For example, for a tourist, a map can be used to find a tourist site. Well, city planners may use maps to decide where to put hospitals and parks, as it shows land features and how land is currently being used. Finally, the boundary object is a medium that allows information to pass between various knowledge sites, as well as enabling different communities to interact and work together. So in this study, the boundary object will take the form of a journey of thinking. It is a group-based reflection created by students. The students from different groups will write their journey of thinking based on their own research questions. And the journey of thinking has three main sections: questions explored, big ideas learned, and deeper research needed. So in this study, we approach cross-community interaction as a new emergent level of collaborative discourse, which is for broader sharing and the continued uprising of ideas towards higher social epistemic levels. So as students work in each community, they accumulate knowledge and generate rich discussions in their own community, which is a solid base for cross-classroom sharing. After students accumulated enough knowledge, their cross-classroom interaction can be mediated through boundary objects that index students' knowledge advances in each community. They will start to create the boundary object and share the boundary object in an open online space for further collaboration and development. The boundary object created by previous students can also be imported in the same space, so students can use those as a resource for their own needs. Finally, designs of cross-classroom collaboration need to leverage dynamic ideas, contact, and knowledge flows across multiple levels of discourse. So we designed a synchronous space for all communities to have a synchronous discussion to tackle urgent questions. For the synchronous cross-classroom community layer, we designed this space where students from different classrooms can join and share their ideas to solve challenging problems. And students call it Super Talk. I will explain the Super Talk in more detail later on. So that's the view for Super Talk. So this we designed this Super Talk space for where students from all different classrooms can join here and share their ideas to solve challenging problems. And this is a journey of thinking. which takes the form of boundary object. So this presentation material is based on a 3-year design-based study. And the example that I will show you is in study 2, which lasted from January to 2018 to June 2018. In total, there were 89 grade 5 students who participated in this study from 4 different classes. We will label them class 1 through 4. So in the beginning, in each class, students will participate in kickoff activities like apple eating, high kicks, and then students will create a research question that they are interested in. So they will group together based on the same research questions and generate a larger group question as a team. And at the same time, the teacher will create identical wonder areas in ITM to show students research questions. So students can go into the view under the wonder area to post their notes, share their ideas, and build on each other's notes as a group. And the other 3 classes went through similar learning progresses. So they have their own wonder areas and their own discussion space as a focal group, and also creates journey of thinking. So after they created their journey of thinking, students can share their final journey of thinking in ITM, so other students can read each other's journey of thinking. So this place is an open space for all students. As you can see, students can tap in their keywords. So all the journey of thinking that has this keyword will held up and as a list. So the second cross-community collaboration design in this study is that a synchronous discussion space, which is a super talk that I mentioned earlier. Towards the last month of the learning section, students suggested several topics for cross-classroom inquiry. And finally, how do people grow became the topic. So students from 4 classes joined the discussion and posted their questions, ideas from their own expertise background. So as you can see, a note can be imported from their previous view, and each dot represents a note. A line shows the built-on relationship between 2 nodes. So in order to understand the quality of their collaboration, we analyzed the content of students' super talk posts and identified 10 key conceptual elements. Each conceptual element explains the process of human growth from a specific angle, ranging from the growth of muscles and bones to digestion, brain control, growth hormones, and so on. So conceptual connections were further identified based on students' discourse responses. The conceptual element and the connections are displayed based on the sequence of time. Based on the concepts and their contributors, we further trace back to identify the related inquiry work in the contributor's home classroom. The lower section illustrates the first time each concept is shown in the home class. A dotted line connecting between the lower section and the top layer illustrates the information from the focal classroom that fed students' contribution to the super talk. One interesting phenomenon that we observed is that students do not only bring ideas to the collaborative space, students also bring ideas back to their home classrooms. In classroom 3, the idea about mitosis did not catch others' interest until May, when class 1 initiated the super talk topic, asking exactly the same question. So students B was able to connect with other peers from the whole grade 5 who were interested in exploring how people grow. So this student joined the collaboration with his earlier note about mitosis copied in the cross-classroom super talk thread in ITM. So on June 5th, Classroom 1 held the last metacognitive meeting with the theme of how people grow to summarize their learning. So students participate in the discussion from their focus areas. At the same time, they integrated what they learned from the super talk back into their conversation. When students are sharing the content that are related to brain cells, student K7 brought back the information about cell mitosis that he read from the super talk and leveraged students' understanding about this cutting-edge concept and make connections with all other human body organs, as cell mitosis is how each body organ grow at the base level. So to further investigate the quality of super talk, we used a LifeSite software to train and build a natural language processing model. And we've compared 633 regular ITM notes in the human body unit and the 23 notes in the super talk page. So 9 levels of labels were used. The coding schemes was based on Dr. Zhang's and co-workers' coding schemes. And we further expanded the coding scheme based on our research needs. So that's the number of posts in each classroom and also number of authors in each view. And the finding shows that compared with the regular ITM home classroom discussion posts, students posts in the super talk have more notes categorized in elaborative explanation, which is the highest level, highest quality in the coding schemes. This table reports the rating of students' journey of thinking in comparison against the same measurements applied to the journey of thinking created in previous iteration without using ITM. So students' reflection recorded under the scaffold of "we used to think" captured their initial thoughts about the inquiry topic, which were mostly pre-scientific and hybrid and presented under unelaborated information. Their ideas recorded under "now we understand" were all coded as scientific and mostly presenting elaborated explanation, as it's 83% of how the various human body functions work. So their ideas summarized under "now we understand" also showed a higher level of scientific sophistication and complexity than the previous iteration. So to conclude, this research explored students' collaborative iteration unfolding across emergent social levels. In the cross-boundary space, students further expanded their social connections, engaged in addressing challenging research questions, and demonstrated higher level collaboration and understanding beyond their classroom walls. As students in each classroom pursued progress inquiries to deepen their understanding of various human body systems, they shared knowledge advances with the partner classrooms using a reflective journey of thinking. The journey of thinking synthesis as boundary crossing objects showed students solid reflection. And last, students, the super talk problem was not predetermined, but emerged based on students' interest at the intersection of different lines of inquiry about various human body systems. The Super Talk served as a cross-boundary metaspace where students formed extensive solid connections and integrated distributed expertise to develop higher level understanding. The Super Talk also offers an opportunity for students who did not get much response and worked alone, as it brought a new chance for students to collaborate with others and enable valuable ideas shared through a broadened platform. Thank you. That's all for my presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Guangji.
Yeah.
That was really interesting and exciting to see the quality of the notes. I don't see any question right now. If you have, please put it down. Just to save time, I'm just going to pass on to Dan now, and then we'll come back together for a discussion.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
And then you want to try sharing your own screen again, or you want to just straight away for Alex to share? Okay. Yeah.
I'll try again, and if it doesn't work.
The Alex has shared his screen. So can you see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, maybe we'll go with Alex share screen.
Okay.
Let's
Go
get
ahead.
started. Sorry about technical issue. Okay, next. To the next page. So I'll begin with a metaphor used by Anne Pennington Julian and John Sidney Brown in their new book, Design Unbound. Our society is entering a whiteward world with constant rapid changes and ever-emerging complex challenges. It's totally different from the context in the industrial age, which is more stable and predictable. In the industrial age, one can behave and approach the career like steering a steamship. The survival strategy was to master the required skills, follow established routines, and practice a lot in order to be successful. However, game changes now. We need quite a different approach in the whiteward world. Pennington Julian and John Sidney Brown use the metaphor of whitewater kayak. As a whitewater kayak, you need to read constant changing context, make decisions, and act in the moment. Otherwise, you are dead. So to prepare students in this new context for a productive future, education faces great challenges in cultivating adaptive minds and foster agentic actors beyond the routine followers. Next, please. So to address this great challenge, we argue for the need to engage in more creative, dynamic, and transformative forms of inquiry. But what might be such forms of inquiry looks like? We identify a few key features based on the literature. First, transformative inquiry requires students to take on creative roles in co-constructing their own trajectories of learning. Instead of following prescripted learning goals and activities, students interact with one another and their teacher to co-construct specific arrangements of the collaborative process and adapt them based on emerging needs. Accordingly, such collaborative inquiry leads to engage students in ever deepening journey of inquiry that build on what students in the past and further informs what they will do in the future. Finally, design for such transformative inquiry also leads to entail dynamic collaboration and improvisational discourse. Next, please. So you might be also wondering how such forms of inquiry looks like among students in the classroom. Actually, inquiry processes with these features are essential to the knowledge building pedagogy. It aims to transform classroom into knowledge building communities by fostering student epistemic agency and organizing student interaction for sustained idea improvement with a principle-based approach. In each knowledge building initiative that typically extends several months, students work with their teacher to decide what they need to understand, plan, and improvise all types of activities, and reflect on personal and collaborative knowledge progress. As progress is made, the community work together to identify new and deeper problems for deepening actions and discourse. In the past 30 years, the knowledge building approach has been applied broadly in different countries across different grade levels and subject areas. Next, please. Here I would like to highlight one critical principle in knowledge building, which is also essential to the design and the implementation of transformative inquiry. Scadamala introduced the concept of epistemic agency to highlight high-level student cognitive responsibility for charting their own trajectories of learning. Recently, researchers have also elaborated this concept to include its social and cultural dimensions. So building on the literature, we define it as both a personal and a collective capacity elected by students to shape the path and the context of inquiry. Next, please. So when we take a close look at existing approaches to support the design and the implementation of collaborative inquiry, we can find that these approaches tend to focus on pre-specification. Students are typically asked to address predefined challenges in fixed small groups using given resources with prescribed procedures so as to achieve even planned outcomes by the teachers or researchers. In that case, students rarely have the chance to make transformative changes. A related core issue is how can dynamic, ever-deepening processes of collaborative inquiry be organized and supported in a way that leverages student agency. Next, please. So to address that issue, we propose a new approach in our recent work, namely reflective structuration. Reflective structuration represents a reflective and emergent process by which students, with support from their teacher, of course, co-configure shared inquiry structures over time to channel the individual and the collaborative efforts for ever-deepening inquiry. As a core assumption, this approach engages students in double cycle construction to build on not only content knowledge, but also the social contexts and the structures in which they work, leading to emergent changes in these structures that allow their inquiry to deepen and transform over time. It is through the co-construction of social contexts and shared structures that students take on high-level agency. In our previous work, we have identified 4 types of shared structures, including what the community should investigate, who should work on what in connection with whom, how the community should conduct investigation, as well as why the community should operate in specific ways. Next, please. So in light of the emergent process of reflective structuration, the design and the implementation of collaborative inquiry requires a shift from a prescriptive approach to emergent design. I'm gonna use the social trios metaphor used by Jian Wei in his previous talks because I think it's really a smart way to make it more understandable. So instead of creating a planned path for participants to follow, the designer will create a largely open layout for public space and invite participants to use this space. And participants' actions and inactions in the space will create the social trios. Then the designer will work with the social trios to pave the way for users, which is more adaptive to participants' needs. Our design of student agency-driven collaborative inquiry is informed by this approach to create more dynamic and spontaneous spaces for students. Next, please. And here comes an example of how we use this approach to support student-driven collaborative inquiry in a grade 5 science classroom. The teacher will open the context, largely open to engage students to explore their initial questions and ideas. And then the teacher will work with students to discover the interest trails of inquiry and co-configured pathways of learning ahead that lead to students' intentional inquiry for both individuals and small groups. In this example, the community co-constructed a structure of what in the form of 7 big questions based on students' individual interest. They use this structure to formulate opportunistic small groups and engage in idea-centered inquiry. The learning progress and connections in the unfolding inquiry gave rise to new questions and collections. And the teacher worked with students to make sense of the ideal moves in the community and reorganize pathways of learning ahead. This created expanded opportunities for further inquiry and collaboration as an iterative process. Next, please. I'm going to briefly share an empirical study just came out last week in IGCSL to illustrate how we use this approach to organize dynamic agency-driven knowledge building practice in a grade 5 science classroom. Next, please. The purpose of this case study is to investigate how the reflective structuration approach may afford opportunities for students to elect epistemic agency for ever deepening inquiry with the support of the teacher and examine the impact for productive knowledge building practices. The participants were 21 students in a grade 5 science classroom and 1 teacher who was new to the knowledge building pedagogy. Here's the 3 research questions. The first one addresses the question about how they formulate and adapt the chart of big questions to organize and sustain its inquiry over a school year. And the second research question is how the students' agentic moves result in emergent and transformative changes in the big question needs in the structure of work to reorganize their inquiry over time. The last research question examines the outcomes, how the impact of this approach on students' knowledge building discourse and their understandings. Next, please. So this slide summarizes our findings to the first research question. The figure shows the evolution of the big question to guide and reorganize the community's knowledge building. As we can see from the figure, the community first formulated the first 4 big questions in late September based on students' individual interest. And the teacher recorded this big question on a big chart paper and hung it on the classroom wall with students writing their names next to each big questions. Then corresponding small groups formed to carry out inquiry and the discourse focused on these big questions. And in October, 3 additional questions were added and they formed the corresponding small groups. With the knowledge progress made in each area, the community reflect on their knowledge progress advances in mid-December. This collective reflecting process led to the emergence of 2 new big questions, question 8 and question 9, as well as the reframing of several existing questions. Small groups were reformed based on the modified inquiry directions for further work. Next, please. We also conducted deeper analysis of the critical episodes where major changes were made to the chart of the big questions. Through this analysis, we identified 4 patterns of agency-driven transformation in the year-long collaborative inquiry. This including the formulation of the initial big questions based on individual students' interest, and expanding the chart of big questions to accommodate emerging interests of inquiry, like question 5, 6, and 7 in October, as well as reframing shared inquiry directions based on updated knowledge and emerging problems. That's the update of Q1, Q2, Q4, Q6 in the spring semester. And the last one is they formulate a rise above conceptual topics at the intersection of multiple lines of inquiry. Here is an example of the formulation of Q line. Why do we have sales? We further examined all the laws about sales in the long form. So as you can see from the figure, before the emerge of these big questions, students in the first group, why do we have both? The second group, the third group, the fourth group, and the sixth group were all talking about sales in their own context. Where the teacher noticed the emergence of this topic, he organized several collective discussions to help students see the connection. Nature's community worked together to frame a new big question about sales in early January. Next, please. While analyzing the careful laws about sales over the whole school year, we put the questions they worked on and the findings from different groups. Also, those who worked on these big questions in this figure. As you can see from it, after the formulation of the sales or the line big questions, many students work on different body systems continued to share their findings, even though they work on different groups. And there are also new contributions from those who were members of this group to continually deepen the knowledge in this area. Next, please. To examine the impact of student agency-driven knowledge building through the reflective structuration approach, we conducted social network analysis and content analysis of students' online knowledge building discourse. We also compared students' response in the pre and post test. This analysis suggests that the co-configured dynamic inquiry enabled productive knowledge building interactions and outcomes. Next, please. These results are consistent with the findings of our previous work. We suggest that the reflex structuration approach led to more collective discourse and productive patterns of contribution online, as well as more sophisticated ideas online and in student portfolio loads. Next, please. In our previous conference presentations and journal submissions, we found that the audience and the viewers were very curious about the teacher's role in co-organizing student agency-driven knowledge building practices. So, combining findings from this research and our previous work, we summarized the interactive input from the teacher and students in co-configuring and adapt the dynamic inquiry process in this table. Measured in 4 aspects. By adopting an emergent design approach, the teacher supports the dynamic process in the following 4 ways, including making open-ended planning to support free exploration and engaging in dual-layer noticing that including the involvement of student ideas and the emerging structures in the community. The teacher also engaged in co-constrained structure barrier artifacts and use co-generated structures to keep track of the knowledge building practice in the community. Next, please. So combining the findings of our previous work and this research, we conclude that the dynamic and ever deepening inquiry can be co-configured and regulated through the reflective structuration approach. Besides, the reflective structuration approach provides a temporal context for students to work with epistemic agents by co-constructing shared structures of inquiry with their teacher's support. And our research also suggests that this approach enables more productive longitudinal interactions and outcomes. The concept implication of our work is that it provides a new mechanism and strategy for classroom organization to support creative and dynamic participation. Meanwhile, you have just heard the presentation from Catherine about how we use this idea to update the ideal thread mapper, support dynamic inquiry and knowledge-building practices. Next, please. So if you're interested in our work, here are some relevant articles for your reference. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. That was really insightful, understanding the teachers and students' roles in this reflexive fluctuation. So I'm going to bring both of you up together for a discussion. I don't see any question particular to your session. So I'm just going to read out, Catherine, there's a question from Vivian. Back to your session again. She says that, may I know how super talk is defined?
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. So conceptually, the super talk is a space where all participants can join for high-level discourse and expand their inquiry. And it is also important design to address students' emergent needs. And practically, it refers to an open online space where all the students from different communities can work together to solve challenging questions beyond their classroom walls. And another reason why it was called Super Talk was because students want to make a difference with your regular kind of discussion space. So they named their space as Super Talk, as it's bigger than their home classroom view. And because it's also potentially can involve all grade 5 students in this space.
Okay, thanks. Just on this super talk, and I'm hearing Dan talk about the rise above. I wonder, conceptually, are there very different things, or do the class use them interchangeably? Between the super talk and the rise above.
I'm sorry, can you say your question again?
Oh, I'm just asking about the super talk that you talked about, and then Dan also talked about the rise above. I just wonder if they are used in similar way, or there are very important differences between these two.
I think what is similar is that the content that students usually post in here, based on our study, is that students usually post a well-defined knowledge. It's already based on what they have learned. So that's type of rise above. But what is different is that so Super Talk is a conceptual design to specifically address the needs for students who have emergent questions and emergent research needs. So for Rise Above, I think it's not only happened in Super Talk, this space, but also in their home class space. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think we use a Rise Above to indicate a different layer, like the interactions among different groups. So like the example I used in the talk, students in different groups, they were actually working on SEAL, but don't have that group formed. So the teacher noticed the emergence of this talk, students in the first group talking about bone cells. In the third group talking about the skin cells. In the immune system group talk about white blood cells. In the sixth groups, actually they were talking about the same topic, but they didn't realize that. So through the reflection, they realized that, well, actually there's a shared group among different groups. So this is like a gene emerged from the across the different groups to form like a higher layer of the longitudinal interactions. We use the Q line as an example to illustrate this process.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just giving some time for the participant to put up their question. You can also use the Q&A tab. And just
I think, I think another similarity with Dan's in-depth research and mine is that we both investigate the emergent process of how this inquiry happened. And what is different is that Dan is focusing on like within a community, how this idea developed. And my research focus is on extending this inquiry into a larger time scale and also a kind of higher social kind of structure. So, but the point that we want to make for this webinar is that for the concept of emergence inquiry, we need to find a better way to facilitate this new type of learning phenomenon, and also provide sufficient technical tools to support this emergent process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, yes. Thanks for the explanation. I think for all of us working with, the nexus of practice and research, when we look at emergent practices, capturing the emergence in our classroom, and usually the teachers, it takes a lot from the teachers. Yeah, I think what you have given is some ways for the teachers to think about how they can work with the students' idea, creatively follow that flow, which I thought was really powerful. Yeah. There is another question from Giselle. Would you enlighten us more about threat mapping? Yeah, whoever wants to start first.
So the threat mapping is one function in idea threat mapper. So basically, it's a timeline and show all the nodes that created by students, and you can not only see how and when students create each node, but also you can compare the timeline between different communities. So it's a nice visualization of how ideas progress. So students come in their discussion space, they can see that how their initial ideas developed and build on or revised over time.
Okay. Giselle, you can keep the question coming, but we have one from Gausia, I think along the same line as what I have asked also. Could you please explain more about reflexive structuration and super talks, their commonality differences, and they're more about within and across communities?
Okay, so I'll give some explanation about the reflective structuration approach. So basically, my research focuses on the organizing of sustained student-driven longitudinal practice in one community. And Catherine did the inter-communities collaborations. So it's like a different, that's focus on different layers, but we all use a reflex structuration approach to organize student-driven over open-ended process of inquiry. And let me see the super tags. The super tags, I'm going to just elaborate on that. Yeah. So reflect structuration is just like a new strategy to organize the classroom processes through, when we say structuration, this structure is not provided predefined by teacher or researcher. It's through the process of their longitudinal process that the teacher and students make the teacher to student to co-construct structure together during this process. And it's a way to give students some agency during the process, not just like a routine or procedure followers during this process. Okay. I don't know, does this answer your question about this structure of operation? Okay.
Yeah, that's the limitation of webinar, that we cannot have direct interaction with the participant. We have a couple more minutes for question, maybe one or two more questions. This has been looked at in the science classroom. Were there other classrooms that you all were looking at for other kind of disciplinary discourse?
Yeah, so currently the major, we worked in science classrooms, like for majority of our research. And we also look forward to see whether how this inquiry process goes in like new subject like arts. And yeah, so especially during COVID-19, students can only study at home. So all other subjects could be, like has this potential to use this structure and the theoretical framework like math and English and literature. I think they're all very good subjects that we can work in the future. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I look forward to that. Giselle has another follow-up question. She said, thanks for your reply. Is thread mapping more like a record of their discussion? Also, are students required to research on topic before they come to the KB class? Is their research guided with a handout beforehand?
Yeah, thank you for your question. This is a really good question. So the thread mapper is not only a record of their discussion, because it also show the dynamics of how students interact with each other. You can also see how students build on each other's notes. So and also revise their initial ideas to a more refined one. So it's more like a evolution of ideas, and not only for the individual, but also for the whole community. And for the students, so they don't have predefined research topics. So they will start their research topic by after the kickoff activities. So we will arrange different kickoff activities, but it depends on students, and they will come up with their initial research question and decide which topic they want to learn and who they want to work with.
Great. And there's a question from Ming Xiao saying that more explanation about boundary objects.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Michelle. So the boundary object, you can consider that as a product that has same structure and that can be served for different use. So for the example that I used in my presentation, so if you use a map, for different persons, it might serve different purposes. So for a tourist, you might use a map to find where you want to go or find the directions. But for governments, they probably use that to design the outline of a city. So it meets different needs in different situations. So in our case, the boundary object, the journey of thinking. For students who write the journey of thinking, it helps students to reflect what they have learned, and also it serves another function for community interaction. And the third layer is that oh yeah, the third point is that thanks for waiting. Different students can use it as different purposes. We also imported this journey of thinking from previous years, so students can use it as a resource to think of it as a book, and then they can learn what others already learned and integrate that type of information in their own learning. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks. Any one last question? We started a bit late, so. Any concluding thoughts from our two speakers as we round this off?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for coming, for joining us in this early morning, and I would like to also express my gratitude, and thanks for all our panel to arrange this webinar for us to share our ideas and research results. Yeah. Yeah,
thank you. And then?
Yeah, I want to thank Julie and also the special interest group for offering us this great opportunity to share our most of the recent work with everyone here. And thank you for joining us in this challenging morning, Monday morning. Thanks.
Yeah, I should be thanking you. I think both of you are tackling some of the real challenge in practice as well. I mean, you come from a very strong research lens, and it's really making me think a lot about my work in knowledge building classroom as well. So I just want to thank you on looking at this within and across community and this reflective structuration and transformation. I think we'll hear a lot more and read a lot more of your work in the days to come. So thank you so much. Yeah, with this, I want to thank our participants as well for joining us in this early Monday morning, and our two speakers for their wonderful work and their sharing. I would just like to highlight the next webinar. There's upcoming webinar on the 19th of October on learning, teaching professional development and policy in the post-pandemic world. And so please register and join us for this next webinar series. And with this, really thank our speakers and thank for the organizer, and thanks Alex and Mongxiang for putting this together, and all the participants. So have a good day ahead, and we'll say bye-bye for now.
Thanks so much, Lee.
Yeah, maybe I get the speaker to stay behind. We can get a picture. We haven't gotten a picture together. Okay. Mongxiang, you want to show your video for us to take a picture? Or Alex, you want to come on? I'll take it now. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I was not very convenient.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, we have your picture there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Do we have the slides, or do we want the slides?
We want to use that holding slide instead. Yeah.
Yes.
Do we use the holding slide?
Instead.
And lots of thank you in the chat group for two speakers.
May I change to the slide? Okay. Yeah, use this slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, 2. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Alex.
Thank you. We'll stay
Thank you,
connected
Linda.
then. Thank you. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Lee.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.